Good morning. So my presentation today will look at how we use the cloud to prepare and distribute OTT broadcast channels to MVPDs. So when I say MVPDs here, I mean the regular traditional pay TV operators, but also the new virtual MVPD, virtual service providers like Sling TV, Hulu, DirecTV Now, and PlayStation Vue. This solution that I will show you is being deployed as we speak with a major US broadcast network. So the first thing, what problems are we solving for OTT streaming related to local channels? So if you look at the traditional way of doing things, you have your four major networks, over-the-air delivery, or some type of arrangement, collaboration with the MVPD, must carry, or retransmission consent. And you get the channel at home. That's all local, all working fine, no problem. That model is working very well, but that's for over the air. So now, what about OTT? Okay, when more and more people are watching over the top on mobile devices. More specifically, how do you manage to aggregate about 200 affiliates for each network all across the country? For stations that are not interconnected, okay? The stakes are pretty high because those virtual MVPDs, they need the local channels to be relevant to have parity of services compared to traditional pay TV. Also, with OTT, unicast consumption, you have the potential for better monetization via advanced advertising, so there is a strong incentive there. But it's complicated. Again, not everything is interconnected. And you need to manage the content rights because the content rights often don't apply to OTT streaming. So we look at how we solve those problems and what type of architecture we are deploying. So what we have is a hybrid, on-prem cloud solution that uses internet connectivity for aggregation and distribution. In every station, we deploy a software appliance. It's called the Spectrum XC that transcode and uplink, if you'd like, the main HD channel to the cloud. And then in the cloud, you have the VOS cloud. I'll come back to VOS cloud in a minute. Does schedule management, Scotty 35 insertion, what I refer to as decoration, and then does the distribution to the virtual MVPDs. So again, we have about 200 of those, stations connected to the cloud. In the cloud, we do the decoration, distribution to the MVPDs. As you can see on the top, also, the content rights, they are propagated using something called Scotty 224, okay? That's sent out of band to the MVPD OTT platforms. So I don't know if you're familiar with that Scotty 224. Real quick, for those who don't know about it, this is also called SNI, Event Scheduling and Notification Interface, and that enable the content provider to send schedule and content policies to the distributors. The content policy controls how the content is distributed to audiences based on the attribute of that audience, like geolocation, the zip code of your subscription, or the device type on which you're watching. So one implementation is for the content provider to send the Scotty 224, out of band to the distributor. That's happening ahead of airtime. A policy applies to a piece of programming that is identified via content ID. And then you insert Scotty 35 in band in the stream, okay, to decorate the video and provide the content ID. As well as provide in-band the default restrictions in case the 224 doesn't make it somehow. So you have a standard-based way of providing the rules and policy, and you see what's nice also, it keeps a clean demarc, standard-based between the content provider and the distributor. All right, so at the core of our solution, you have that VOS cloud, platform. So what is it? It's a cloud-native media processing platform. Runs on private or public cloud. So here in that particular deployment, everything is running on AWS. And as you can see here, we are porting every processing expertise, intellectual property that Harmonic does, into the cloud. So transcoding all our codecs, multiplexing, playout features, etc. All of that is being ported. We do that in stages. We started with multi-screen, so your transcoding, packaging, origin, etc. Then we did some more TS-based workflows, like for IPTV or cable head ends. Then primary distribution, and we're adding the playout and origination features, okay? So going back to the architecture for the solution at hand here, we do three things. That's the main thing I want you to remember: aggregation in the cloud, decoration in the cloud, and distribution in the cloud. All right. So we're going to look at three components, the three key components of the solution. First of all, ahead of airtime, you need to manage the schedule. So here you see on that slide, I see the broadcaster on the left, the cloud in the middle, the national broadcaster on the top right, and the MVPD at the bottom. So what we do related to schedules is we import all the schedule for all the stations, and we do that ahead of airtime using a mix of Graysnow, Tribune Media Services, traffic systems. We normalize all of that in the cloud database, but then you need to add the restrictions related to OTT streaming. And a lot of time, those OTT streaming restrictions don't exist, okay? People negotiate contract for over-the-air only. More and more, they're gonna start negotiating contract, for syndication, for instance, for over-the-air and any other delivery method, over the top included. But today, if they don't have the rights, we provide a web client so they can enter those rights, manually. So now I got my schedules, and by the way, there's also a piece of national schedule for prime time, anytime, Fox network is on air. And then what we do is that we export those augmented schedule with all the restrictions back to the SNI system. The SNI system, like I said before, generate the Scotty 224 that goes to the MVPD. So all of that is happening before airtime. This is a simple screenshot of that web client, the web portal, where I can see, my grid, and for every single programming piece, I can edit the restrictions. So you see, this is the real OTT stuff. I can see if the streaming is allowed or not. I can put device restrictions, phone, tablets, etc. And then we also define time-shifted TV type restrictions. Like, do you allow for that piece of programming to do look back or start over, okay? So again, that's the augmentation of the schedule. Once the schedules are ready, they are exported and they are used to create the rules and policies that drives the OTT platform. Next, real time, we do the decoration. So the decoration and the aggregation. So you have the station on the left, the cloud on the right. We put that software appliance called Spectrum XC. We retrieve the HD. We transcode for MPEG-2 to MPEG-4. And then here we do it's called a HSP for Harmonic Streaming Protocol. See that as internet adaptation of the TS, okay, ZXC-like technology. We go up to the cloud, and in the cloud, we insert the Scotty 35. But to do that right, we also have a piece that we call the automation adapter in the middle there that connects to the local automation and kind of bridge and sends all those commands to the cloud. Why is that important? That gives us, the cadence for every piece of programming and every piece of ad that is, on that channel. So we can put accurate signaling for all those elements that make the channel. The second thing it gives us is anything unexpected, unscheduled event, okay? So we are able to cope with that thanks to that connection to the local automation. The Scotty 35, describes everything, a piece of programming and ad. And then here in that deployment, we don't replace the content because of the choice of the broadcast network. But we could replace the content either at the source in the Spectrum XC or in the cloud. For that deployment, it's the OTT platform that is responsible for any content replacement. Finally, there is the distribution. So from the cloud on the left to the MVPD on the right. So here it's kind of the reverse operation. The decorated TS with the Scotty 35 goes over the internet to something called CloudLink. CloudLink is just a software appliance that retrieves the adapted TS and spits out the regular TS to the OTT platform. We can also, provide an IRD, professional IRD for endpoints that require an SDI out for traditional video, if you like. Okay, so what's nice is in the cloud, as you can see, the broadcaster is able to use VOS as a central hub to control which, MVPDs is allowed to receive which source, which, local affiliate. So when you put everything together, this is what it looks like. So it's, fairly complex diagram, but it's a pretty cool architecture. Again, about 200 affiliates on the left. You have the VOS cloud in the middle, connecting to the, appliance at the affiliate, the web client to augment the schedules, and then aggregate 200, and you send that to about 10 MVPDs on the right. So 10 times 200, it's a lot of bandwidth in and out of the cloud, the decoration in real time, all of that frame accurately, thanks to the tie to the local automation. And then you kind of close the loop, if you'd like, inside the OTT platform, where the real-time stream with the Scotty 35 that carries the content ID is mapped to the out-of-band rules that, for a given content ID, provide how the content should be consumed, for which subscriber, on what device, which geolocation, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where you close the loop. I went real quick. I'll give you some conclusion and then maybe a couple of questions. So we use the cloud to do channel aggregation, decoration, and distribution differently. It's a new take on the distribution approach for television. We solve the problem of content right for OTT streaming. And again, if you don't do that, your OTT for local channel simply won't work. We do accurate decoration, not just for programming, but also for ads. So every single break, every single ad, whether it's a national ad or local ad, is signaled, so that then the OTT platform and the manifest manipulator and the ad decision engine can do the dynamic ad insertion for better monetization. And then we connect, as you can see, our VOS cloud to on-prem software appliances, the Spectrum XC on the left, the CloudLink on the right, to build those hybrid cloud on-prem architectures. We strongly believe that the future of TV is not going to be either on-prem or cloud only. It's going to be the two together, working closely together. And it's very important that that connection between the on-prem processing and the cloud processing is optimized, smooth, and done in a smart way, like I was showing you in that architecture. So we have more and more such architecture that are being used and proposed today. Thank you. So I started late, so I had to rush a little bit. Sorry about that. Any questions?
You did indeed. Yes, it looks like we have a question right here. Give us your name and your question.
How's it going? So when it comes to OTT and a lot of these live broadcasts, one of the major issues I've seen is game extensions not following through on the OTT devices the same way they would on traditional broadcast.
Yes.
Using Scotty 202 or any other standard, is there a way of being alarmed or notified, for thinking from an operation standpoint of when a game should be extended and whether or not it was or wasn't, and do you have a solution at Harmonic for it?
Of course. So we are in the middle of the NFL. Guess what? The broadcaster we do that with carries the NFL on the weekend, and so that's a big problem for them. Because, as you know, Verizon has exclusivity for mobile phones, right? So you cannot put, any NFL game if it's not a Verizon service. So how do we do that? Well, that's what I was showing you. The schedule gives you a, planned airtime for the game. But then what happens is that you have the automation. Okay. So here it shows you. I didn't go into all the details. But we receive not only the local automation, but also the network, central automation commands into the system that shoot directly into the cloud. So the central automation that controls, the game tells, VOS Cloud, okay, this is the next program start. And so basically, when there is a overtime situation, we just, are notified later of the next program start, and we maintain via the Scotty 35 the current, rules, the current content IDs, the current restrictions that match, if you remember, the out-of-band 224. So as long as we provide that cadence, the OTT platform will not see a new Scotty 35 start until we send it, and we won't send it until the automation tells us so. That's why I was telling you, everything unscheduled, out of the ordinary, unplanned, you need that automation tie. Okay? That's the way you solve it. And we do that today.
Okay, do we have one more question for Jean? Okay, une question, s'il vous plaît. Give us your name and question.
Hi, I'm John Connell. Thank you for your presentation. If you could just clarify for me, I work with a number of independent programming networks that seek distribution on the cable MSOs and the satellite carriers, and some of the challenges associated with their delivery and transmission and the engineering groups with those systems is that they require they be delivered via satellite. And now IP feeds are now starting to be introduced with the possibility of delivering content via the internet, but some of the challenges relate to security and them being hesitant to break through the firewalls, et cetera, to enable this content to be delivered. So how is Harmonic, and how can I help to make the case for why they should consider using an IP feed other than a traditional satellite delivery?
So, yeah, sure. We have those discussions constantly. So some of them, it has to do with security and reliability. Can you get, the same reliability that you get with satellite or fiber using, the public internet for distribution? So here, that architecture, this is for OTT channels, and even though, the number of people watching over the top for the local channel is growing, this is not still on par with what people watching regular broadcast, channel either on cable, satellite, or over the air. So basically, this is also a platform where a major network is testing the water to see how it goes for OTT distribution. Potentially, the next step would be not necessarily to replace satellite, but to complement satellite with this for regular broadcast services, okay? So about the security, you need to prove, and I didn't go into the details of how secure, each of the links is, but you need to have that discussion about security, multi-factor authentication to access the platform, scrambling of all the links in and out, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to have a strong case for how secure the platform is, accessing the platform, ins and outs of the platforms, and then the reliability, okay? We monitor everything. We have all the metrics, Most of the problem, I'll be honest with you, they are not on the right side, because on the right side, you go to those MVPDs, they are very strong, top business class internet connectivity. It's more like on the left side, when you go to the stations, it varies a lot. Some of them are great, some of them not so great. And then you have to work with the IT environment, the firewalls that you were mentioning, make sure that they understand that this traffic is not like any type of traffic. So I mean, it's a process, but we're getting there.
All right, another round of applause for Jean. Thank you.